Hello, everyone. This is Sergio Moreau here at RBL1 Live with our next guest, Deepa Sureka, who is CEO of Kora. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Sergio. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Yeah, I know we've gone back and forth, so thank you for being flexible in our journey, and we're excited to have you. Today, just to share a little bit about Deepa's background, graduate of Baruch College and also got her master's in a university in India, got her MBA, spent a career in marketing for large firm in India, and Deepa will share more about her story there, worked as the chief operating officer and then left to start her own venture. So wanted to talk a little bit more about executive turned early stage entrepreneur and what inspired that. But let's start and share with the audience, what is Kora?
Thanks, Sergio. So Kora, I am building a platform for skilled cooks who can bring their talent to your home and make everyday meal times easy, affordable, and homemade. So it's really a marketplace for cooks who make delicious homemade food.
Got it. And in your mind, where does it fit in the landscape of, home delivery meal kits? Well, you have standard delivery, home delivery meal kits. Where are you guys?
Well, I think with everything that is out there right now, you still have to do the cooking, or it's delivery and it doesn't carry well, it's in containers, so on and so forth. My desire is to have a cook in your house so you can get extremely fresh and homemade food almost every day.
Amazing. And can you share a little bit more about kind of product and service for those that and who the typical customers?
Yeah, for sure. So the real story is, as a working mom, especially after I had my children, I almost always struggle with the idea of how do I make sure that my family has decent food on the plate, but I also didn't have the time to do it all. So the real idea is, we want men and women to be in workplace, and we want them to be very productive. But guess what? Magic has to happen at home. And really the idea with Kora is, how can you make magic happen at home? So can we leverage community and people who can make delicious home cooked meal for you and solve for that need?
Awesome. And how did this come about? I mean, you were spent a career in marketing, more than, talk about more than 10 years focused on that profession, and then shifted over. What inspired you to make that shift?
It's such a great question, because I'll tell you this: when I decided to become an entrepreneur, a colleague, so a little back up, I was a chief operating officer for Rakuten, Rakuten's marketplace, but I got a chance to restructure and build that business into $triple-digit $1 million in top line. But then, no matter what, when I got home, the question I was asked almost every day was, "Hey, hun, so what's for dinner?" And for me, it felt like no matter how far women go, the responsibility for decisions at home still lie on them. And listen, men are as busy, and are as participative nowadays in household chores. But the reality is, I have seen a lot of women executives struggle with this balance. So after I decided that I wanted to leave Rakuten, I wanted to solve for something that could really address this challenge of, how do we make sure that women can be as productive and at the same time have less guilt for how things happen at home.
And in shifting, what can you talk a little bit about that transition? What was some of the challenging going from being executive at a large company and growing, and then now you're shifting, starting a new venture, and it's
let's start with a big paycheck. But that aside, I think there is a ton of this idea that entrepreneurs are young and they have energy, they're right out of college. So I still remember when I told a colleague of mine who's the CEO of a large company that, hey, I'm thinking about this. The question that literally he asked me was like, are you going through a midlife crisis? And it really took me back. I understand, right? I think a lot of thoughts people have is like, hey, why are you trying to do something entrepreneurial now? And I had to do that reflection. And it really came down to, I finally felt that I had the courage to take on something super meaningful that could make a difference. I mean, it's not just about giving people access to, home cooked meals, which are healthier and really save time, and you live a healthier life, and so on and so forth. It's also creating amazing jobs. And here's my what I'm putting a bet on. I think commodity is going to be free in the future. What is really going to cost is, emotional services, and food is inherently emotional. So if we can create jobs for people with talent, for cooking, or taught skills for cooking beyond what currently the restaurant industry has, I think that could be an amazing way to bridge the gap.
Excellent. What are some of the ways, or what helped you make that transition? I'm sure you probably had, there's a paycheck, but also a team and all the support. What were some of the challenges and how you overcame them in making that shift?
I think it really is a luxury at this stage in my life to be able to do something entrepreneurial. I think having someone at home who was also employed and could take on that primary responsibility was probably the first reason I was like, all right, I think I can take on, it's fine if if we don't travel as luxuriously. So I think definitely that was one challenge addressed, to have stability at home. The second was, going back to the team question. I still remember I was talking to my co-founder in that minute, who's now a co-founder, and she was in LA. She was working with Amex, and we were just talking about the challenges women, both in entrepreneurship and at home, they deal with. When I told her what I was thinking of with Kora, she took a flight in 2 weeks and left her 4-month-old in LA with her husband and came to San Francisco. And we brainstormed and got another co-founder on board. So I think having the right people who encourage you and basically believe in the problem that you're solving, either as a customer or as a service provider itself, is a big way to sort of take that leap of faith.
Excellent. And I know I've loved marketplaces for a long time. Was looking at, we've looked at marketplaces across different industries. Can you share a little bit more about what's the strategy in terms of going to market and getting both, not only customers, but also quality, providers as well. So I'll turn that over to you.
And marketplaces are hard, that. I do think, though, that marketplaces are also magical. When you get the right momentum, it's that network effect. And our desire is to really focus on supply side, which is if you look at today, even in restaurant industry, I think Paired is doing some work in helping you find cooks and other restaurant workers. But the idea is we want to empower these cooks. We don't even call them chefs, because I don't think you need to be a trained culinary talent in order to be an amazing cook. I think it's great that you have that certification, but it's not needed. We want our cooks to be able to create amazing profiles where they can write their menus, the ingredients, beautiful pictures and videos of what they make, and then really help them create sellable events, so that I don't control that and let the market decide what is it that they would like to buy, primarily focused on in-person or in-home services. So our acquisition strategy there is focus on not just culinary schools or restaurant worker unions, but also a lot of going back to the social impact stuff. We work with a lot of foundations like Women's Building in San Francisco or La Colectiva, which also supports domestic workers. So can we help them create those digital profiles which make them more marketable?
For those that aren't familiar, can you walk through a little bit more of the user experience? So an individual goes on your platform.
Sure.
And, how does it work?
So let's start with this. We onboard a cook. We do background checks on them. We help them build amazing profiles, write up their menus. What they have is basically a very marketable and commerce ready page. You would like to host a small 6 people get together, or you have kids and you just want to have meals ready for a few days of the week. You go and say, I feel like Indian food today. You go to the site, you search for Indian, cooks who can make Indian food. If you like their menu, you basically select, click, pick the menu, hit submit, pick the date you'd like to come visit. You would like to have them come visit, book the cook, and they'll show up to your house. You keep the ingredients ready. They'll make delicious meals, 3 mains, 2 sides. Leave it on your countertop or refrigerator, and make sure you're set up for a few days of the week.
Excellent. Sounds like sounds like a lot of fun as well. In thinking about like when you're starting, you talk about like types of cooks, types of like how are you thinking about for many of the audience that are early stage entrepreneurs getting started, like where did you first start when you were narrowing down on type of product and service and even type of meal?
It really started with I focusing on on the host side is working households. Remember, I told my personal story of a working mom. So we decided to stay very focused on households who have children in the age group of 5 to 16. So I created a very narrow view of what that's going to look like, even though the market opportunity is very big, just because you have to use the funding right? So being very targeted on who we're reaching out to. But in addition to that, also ensuring we can manage that experience in the early days so we know what are the trigger points to actually scale it. And so we stayed very focused on geo. So we're starting out in San Francisco and the Bay Area. So we create just the right operating model or playbook that can then be replicated to multiple markets.
Excellent. And I know this was a little bit of we're having more and more founders like you on that are in the earlier stages. Can you share a little bit more about, your stage and your investors?
You know what? I'm going to tell you a story of highs and lows. As you know, every entrepreneur goes through that. I started working on Kora so we incorporated in 2019, which is when my 2 co-founders, we came on board. We did a ton of testing. We did about 50 sessions, which we did it all through WhatsApp. And I thought it was going to go crazy, but we used that knowledge to really invest, make a decision of building Kora, and made the investment in our technology. That was self-funded, and we launched in January 2020. So you can only imagine. We doubled month over month, January through February through March. March 13th, we'd already delivered February numbers, and we came to a screeching halt. Now, talk about having poured in a year and your life and effort that goes into building. So we went through the dark time of COVID, and through that, one of my co-founders had to go find a job, and that was hard in December. I had to ask myself the question, do I really want to do this? But I woke up in January really, knowing that the problem has only gotten worse. More women left the workforce through COVID because they just can't do it all. And so I did I did a little survey and made the decision that if I raise a round, I will go back to market. As part of that, I applied to Stanford Angels and Entrepreneurs and was picked to pitch. And through that, I got commitment from Ulu Ventures. And I think that really is what made me feel like, okay, if I can get some steam behind it, I can go back to market. So I am pre-launch, pre-revenue at this point. I've raised half of what my launch goal is. And my desire is to continue to push and get us to the start line, as I call it again. So yes, it has, like I said, it's the highs and the lows, and back to highs. I'm excited and I'm looking forward to taking us back to market.
Amazing journey. So no, thanks for sharing that. And then also for congrats on the investment from Ulu Ventures. Excellent founding team, Miriam Clint, and then amazing community there. So, and so what is next for Kora?
Well, pretty big, right? The way I think about Kora is, think about a decade ago, cleaning services was, you're like, are you lazy? Why do you need a cleaner? Cleaning services is a $20 billion industry now in the US. 80% of all dual working households use that. Not because we don't have, what do you call the iRobots and the vacuum cleaners, because the need is bigger. I think in-home cooking could be that. And that is, it's sort of our moonshot, right? That's really what I'm going for. Can in-home cooking be that space where you have someone who comes and cook meals for you so that you can be successful at what you're doing while you create a community around yourself.
Excellent. So thanks again, Deepa. We'll allow a few minutes offline, so don't go away too far. But for those watching online, this was Deepa Sureka, CEO and founder of Kora. Thanks for sharing your story today, Deepa.
Thanks, Sergio, and thanks, everyone.